Birds, people, and the dogs that bring them together. This is episode number 33. My name is Bill, and you're tied to the Wopost. If you're listening on the day this episode was released, it's September 2nd, which means that many of you have already had the opportunity to get out on some birds. Whether you're hunting prairie grouse in the northern Midwest, residential geese on the East Coast, or you shot way too many shells on the dove opener like I did, we're entering the season that we spend most of the year thinking about. If you were hunting over a Spinoni or two, then this episode is for you. I spent the afternoon yesterday shooting at high-flying passing doves. I was lucky enough to get drawn for a pretty productive public property in central Indiana, but unfortunately I didn't draw a great spot. There were plenty of doves, but where I was, they were high-flying and fast. So I shot way more shells than birds that I took home. And like a lot of public dove hunts, there's always a few sky blasters that take shots that their light target loads probably won't even range, causing birds that may have ended up in the bag to turn away before most of us even raise our shotguns. But I did make some new friends, and I'll probably have a few new folks to hunt with. And since Moose was the only dog on the field, he got to show off his retrieving skills from simple marks to a few tough blinds chasing down crippled birds shot by hunters way down the field. The retrieving work did not disappoint, and he got compliments from a bunch of other hunters, which made the day a win for me. Before we get too far in, I'd like to thank my Patreon patrons who voluntarily support the Wopost by pledging $3 per month. Patrons get exclusive blog content monthly. Just the other day, Covey, my 4-month-old small Munsterlander, had a potentially life-threatening reaction to one of her vaccine boosters and was rushed back and spent a night at the emergency vet. Thankfully, she's all better now and back to her regular puppy antics, and I'll be writing an after-action review covering what happened, the actions that I took that helped, the actions that I took that didn't help, what I learned, and how I'll prep for puppy vaccinations in the future. The after-action review will be available to patrons at patreon.com/thewopost. The name Spinoni likely refers to the harsh briars where their traditional game resides. Spinoni are a peaceful, patient, sometimes persistent, yet always endearing versatile hunting dog. With historical references as far back as 200 AD, it's one of the oldest continental versatile breeds. They're a squarely and solidly built all-around hunter, muscular and powerful, built more for endurance than speed. Their dense coat has a natural, unclippered look and comes in white, orange roan, white and orange, or brown roan. A correct coat is hard textured and naturally dirt and water repellent. They're big dogs with males standing 23 to 27 inches and females 22 to 25 inches. They generally weigh between 60 and 80 pounds. It's easy to anthropomorphize Spinoni as they will routinely communicate with their owners with their voice and their opinions, their trademarked stare, grumble, or even the famous Spinoni paw. Today we're talking Spinoni Italiano with Rebecca Koch, owner of Mountain Valley Spinone and Mountain Valley K9-5 in Victor, Idaho. Hey, Rebecca, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Thanks for having me.
Can you go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
I'm Rebecca Koch. I have Mountain Valley Spinone in Victor, Idaho. How much further would you like me to go with that?
Well, I'm looking at your wall behind you, and I can see all sorts of plaques and ribbons. So I think you don't just have Mountain Valley Spinone. Like, you've been doing this for a while.
Right, about 26 years.
And
my plaques, they're all from the Spinoni. They're hunting awards from NAVDA, as you see, and then I have the AKC awards that I did for junior hunt and senior hunt, and then we have awards here for the dog shows, which is for the beauty contest, and a few of my guys have taken and won at those events. So I did hit the national specialties a few years. I've lightened up quite a bit since COVID, and my time is more spent with my dogs and my puppies and my funds here. I haven't been able to get out as much as I used to in the past,
Sure.
at least for the dog showing.
Well, the dog shows are, I think those are like a necessary evil for us breeders. It's not the most exciting thing, at least not for me. I think it's something that I do because I feel like I should, but
Right.
not something that I necessarily look forward to as much.
And at times it's very important because you want to make sure when you are breeding that you're breeding correctly in the conformation. But your most important thing I found was walking through the crowds and talking to the people and actually teaching them about the breed, the dogs, who wants them, if they're not for them, and at the same time the hunting and the hunt test, NAVDA and the AKC are as important. So you kind of get a little bit of both in there. Um, the hard part is that if your dogs aren't put together correctly, they're going to fall apart later. So you want the whole picture, the whole package.
Yep, sure thing. That's something that we talk about a lot on this show is, you may have a poorly structured dog with tremendous drive and it's hunting great at 4 years old, 5 years old, maybe even 6 years old, but sometime probably around the 8 or 9 year old time frame is when that
Right.
poorly conformed dog is going to start falling apart. And meanwhile, somebody else may have a dog with 75% of the drive as your dog, but that dog's hunting strong into, 11, maybe even 12 years old.
That's correct. I do make a note when I sell a dog or talk to people that I try and breed, of course, very responsibly with hips, elbows, eyes. I have the vets check their thyroid, their hearts, I mean, everything that we can humanly try to do, but that doesn't really um, guarantee something in the long run. There's always, genetic uh, problems and issues that pop out later. So you do the best you can do. But we do the best we can, and whatever shows up sometimes, you have to make sure you're accountable for, and you have to not be breeding that same line, and you're going to take that out of the equation, and you're going to take care of the people that have to deal with it. And so I try my best to work with them. I'll replace the dog, replace monies that they send the puppy back, whatever guarantee that I've gotten. And in times I've also done it way past the warranty. And so it's not always practiced with a lot of the breeders.
No, but I think, the good ones have it in their heart first and foremost to provide the best dogs that they possibly can to their puppy buyers.
And that's the buyer end of it. Of course, the main thing is keeping the integrity of the breed. I heard a lot of people say we want to improve on it, and I don't think that's quite the right wording that we should be using, because the Italians had already done their job, and we won't be improving on what they've already gotten um, established. And why would we be telling everyone we're trying to improve on the breed when we're trying to keep the integrity?
Some people say we're going to improve the breed, and I wouldn't call it an improvement necessarily because that's subjective. I think that there's a big difference in a lot of our breeds with our North American dogs versus their European counterparts because they're bred to a different type at some point with a lot of the breeds. And you can look at wire
Irish
hairs.
setters.
They're like, wow,
Yeah.
Irish setters are a perfect example. I was going to say wire hairs in temperament, but I think Irish setters in
Yeah.
structure is in structure and in well, their conformation traits coat, right?
I agree. We see too much of it, getting the pretty look and not doing, the dogs justice. They're not. breeding for what they're meant to. They're breeding to what they perceive as a nice show dog, and we need to keep that balance.
Sure. And then likewise, there are hunters out there that want to breed solely for a hunting dog with strong hunting aptitude and the right temperament, and might not breed towards a healthy structure or genetic makeup.
That's correct. Yeah. So it's been tough. When I choose a breeding pair, it's not always a dog that is going to be, well, how do I say this? When I'm choosing, it's not going to be something that's convenient. It's going to be a dog that I may have to go out for. Like I brought them in from Italy, so I don't bottleneck the bloodlines. As you probably know, they are a breed that is still rare. We don't want to breed too tightly or too far out. We want to know what's going on behind them, but we have to be careful as to what we're deciding for a partner for the dog. I have to first look at if this dog has the good temperament, if they're health screened, if they're feel savvy, or what their structure is, what their coats, and the list goes on. And then once they pass that point, and you're at a age that dog can be bred, I don't want to get into a male that or a female that doesn't complement. If they both have a bad shoulder, you don't want to breed the same two. So it's not always convenient for you to breed just what happens to be close, per se. I have probably 50 plus dogs that I've taken in frozen semen for later breeding with females that may not particularly match with what I happen to have or what I can acquire. So it becomes very intense, very expensive, and a lot of people are out there breeding to make a bucks, basically. So we have to be careful when people are choosing to buy a dog that they go to the correct, responsible breeder. I'm lecturing you like
I'll take all the advice that I can get. Most of the listeners know, and I don't know if we got into it the other day or not, but my A litter is coming up. My female actually just came into season, so I'm counting down days and getting ready to start progesterone testing here in the next few days, and looking for numbers to be in the right area.
It's always in the timing.
Right.
Do you have a male chosen? Of course you should,
I
by
do.
now, but are they?
Yep, stud's already chosen, and I mean, I have a general idea, but probably a 3-day window when things are going to happen, right? And so I've already got it planned to head out to Iowa, sometime within this 3-day window, plus or minus.
Right.
But yeah, I'm pretty confident of when it should be. But
Right.
before we get too far ahead of ourselves, though,
Sure.
Can you go ahead and just tell us how you got into bird dogs? Did you grow up hunting, or did you grow up with dogs, or?
I did. I grew up in New Hampshire, and my brother, he probably instilled that into me. We always liked nature and outdoors, and of course, his favorite pastimes were hunting and fishing. So I followed suit. Of course, I was always drawn to dogs, and they did respond well to me, and so the only natural path that I was going to take was go into training them, take them hunting with me. The funny thing is, I started with mutts and was able to train them enough to perform for me that at that time, it was not pointing dogs, but I also trained like an otter hound. We had a fox terrier, a Doberman. Our biggest entertainment was a chocolate lab schnauzer mix that we trained to retrieve and flush for us.
Wow.
And of course, the Labradors were at that time they weren't known as pointing labs, but I was able to perform the point at that time or the hold because I didn't want to have to run behind them and miss the birds, and of course the golden retrievers. I think I moved out into Jackson back in 1980, and I saw my first Spinoni at that Federal Express in Jackson, I think in 1995. It was a huge brown male named Moose. And when I found out he was a pointing dog, that was it. Perfect. And at that time, there wasn't a whole lot out about the Spinoni, and I had to do a lot of digging. But I found a breeder in Iowa named Ron Stannerson and with Northridge Spinoni. And he was put on a waiting list. It was a little over a year. And I purchased my first female Northridge Fedora. And later I just started hooking up with numerous breeders in the Spinoni Club of America and so on. I got good friends with Mike and Marge McCormick with Grouse Rousters, and we started, I did, imported, and he did some stud dogs from Italy, Arnold, Dival, Potenza, Ferrantum Rudy, and I purchased some females out of Italy, couple more males, one from Sweden and Czechoslovakia, because we're talking 26 years. It's just been me pulling in outcrosses to keep the lines healthy. But my main goal, of course, besides the breeding and the work that's involved in the maintenance, as you hear, is the hunting. And I guess it's okay to digress a little, but I took her out on my first Spinoni to decide exactly what path I was going to take to transform into retrieving and just uneducated hunting training that I did in the past. I wanted to do it the right way, of course. And so I met a hunt trainer out in Idaho Falls. And my husband and I had gone out and we met him out at in Roberts at that time, Roberts, Idaho. And it was a trainer that was a little high strung, may I say, a little rougher than I would have liked to have used. But I was new and just not quite sure what direction to go. And we had purchased some chucker, and we had taken them out, and we had met the trainer, and he put the bird out there. Well, actually, first he flew in about 100, and dust flew everywhere, and I kind of didn't like him then. And he started to train her or look at her and evaluate her. And in those days, and some still to today, they're not as familiar with this Spinoni and the movement and how they hunt. And he was not real impressed with her, and she was just working it and quartering everything all natural, doing quite a nice job, I thought. And he turned to us after 15 minutes and said, "I think you'll waste your money with me." And then I almost wanted to start to cry because he was basically telling me my dog was a POS, and I was insulted. And he was facing my husband and I, and we were looking, and she worked in and worked behind him while he was giving us the discouraging talk of not wanting to train her. And I looked behind, and she was on point on top of a hill and just held there for like 3 minutes while we were trying to get his attention and point to the dog behind him. And he turned, and he was very embarrassed and trying to backtrack. And we obviously never used him, but it
Yeah.
was kind of a nice beginning to my start with the pointing breed.
So what
Since
what do you think it was about the Spinoni that he looked at as a trainer and said, I can't work with this?
they are very used to um, fast, quick, um, ranging, very different styles, very um, he was almost an impatient person, but that wasn't anything to do with it. People are used to and have hunted with dogs that are um, quicker, faster, reach out more, or higher range, or um, I have saying that I have given people that were asking me what is the difference between the Spinoni and say the Griffon, and I explained that I've trained not now I have, but I've trained numerous hunting breeds like the Spaniels, the Broncos, the Retrievers, short hairs, English pointers, wire labs, poodle pointers, whatever. But they're all different styles. And while they're all bred to accomplish the same goal, there's a big difference between them, as we all know. And I told them physically, the Griffon has, a different shape. It's more refined. They have a straighter front shoulder. And if you look at a greyhound and see that shoulder in the front, they're made for speed. The Spinonis are totally different angle. They're not made for that fast speed. This they're deep chested. They have a lot bigger nose. They're more hound like, a lot like like the bloodhound with the longer ears where they're catching scent, the wrinkles in the face. Even with the say the German wire hair or the Griffon, they will get 3 or 4 hours of exercise, but and I'm generalizing, not all of them are this way, but they
Hmm.
will come in and then nonstop. They never really, they're just walking, pacing, looking. The Spinoni will get their exercise, walk in and sleep like a couch potato. Um, you can hunt all day with a Spinoni, and if they're in good shape, they don't tire. They're very methodical. They're high driven. They they have a less fatigue. Their characteristics to hunt. They have a fast. Well, they have a driven trot. It's really pretty to watch. I say that it's anybody that wants to come. It's just they're more than welcome. It's fascinating to see them. And I may be partial, but I find it to be just beautiful. I'm trying to think of the perfect word for it, but I
I've heard it
don't have it.
described as gated before.
Their speed is similar, like to the trot or a gallop, and it's collected. And they have, of course, that's clear advantages such as resistance to fatigue, if you want to put it in other words. But you fall in love, and when on scent or retrieve, they don't give up. Nothing stops them. They're bred for like dense, thick cover, and in the field, I think they're kind of fearless. And sometimes I've hunted or seen other breeds, and they they can still handle the thick stuff, but they sometimes prefer to pick their way through, or they're not quite as bullish into the rush as say the Spinoni. We have quite a few that have to get more amped up, and they can crash in and go through with some of the other breeds, but you can just see the difference. Sometimes they're working so far out that they're just going right over the top of the birds or kicking them up, and that's a lot of training also. But these guys are just so meticulous. Um, Friend of mine, Cade, he took his female Olive, and she went out to um, a preserve for the pheasant preserve WMD. And a gentleman was coming out, and he had two short hairs, and he walked out of the preserve, and they said, "Don't bother to go in, there's nothing." I said, "Well, we're already here." So he took her in with his friend, and within 5 steps, she was on point with a pheasant. So it's just they could have been too young, or just blown over the top of them, or not as meticulous. But I mean, Olive's only like 2, so you can't blame it on age with that uh, in mind. Um, and then I've had them. I had a pheasant we knocked down, and it hit and ran because it was just wounded. And the female I had was just going and going and going and tracking this pheasant. And my sister said, "What's wrong with your dog?" She said she can't find it. What's going, because you're not thinking, trust your dog.
Right.
And she ended up coming up and pointing on it, although by that time she probably thought it was another, instead of just picking it up like a dead bird. But it was impressive to my sister and to everybody that happened to have been there to see that she was not going to give up. She was meticulous, and you can get that, but sometimes they have a little ADD, and they're starting to hunt something else on the other side.
I listened to another podcast recently where some of the host and some of the guests were talking about that switch to be able to go from hunting to searching on command,
Right.
or for, I mean, well, they're all commands, let's be honest, whether it's a command from the handler or it's something that happened that triggered the dog to do it. But there are plenty of dogs that lack the maturity or maybe lack training that will just decide, well, you know what, I'm just going to go hunt instead. So you're
No,
looking for that mature, well-bred, or deliberately trained dog that's going to be able to
right.
switch gears at a moment's notice.
And I can always tell sometimes that they have the maturity. I'll be hunting grouse, and the young'uns are still in the brush where my adults are more mature. Spinoni will point up into the top of a tree, and they've already learned that this is where it's going to be, and they've actually found them there. And you're getting a lot of the mature dogs will start hunting, and they'll go to the cover in the brush, and the others are just looking, between 2 pieces of grass and thinking it might be in there. So you're looking at a lot of the maturity from that aspect, and of course, like you said, um, how much they've been trained. I actually teach hand signals to these guys, to my pointers, like that I would of a Labrador, and cast them out, or a right or left, or the single stop whistle. And I've been asked why, because it's not a normal training method for a lot of the pointing people or trainers, and you find it to be a very, very useful when you're in a distance, or they didn't happen to mark the second bird and they need to get or you want them to stop, turn around, and then aim them in a different, or in the water. And Spinoni, of course, are versatile, so you're looking at a dog that's in the water. They can't see up as we can down, or looking where the bird or the duck landed, and their eye level, they need a little assistance if they don't happen to get the second or third bird. Don't you wish? So your hand signals are important, and I think it's entirely up to the owner what they want of the dog, but it's a very useful command, not even just for hunting, but for any time. We are sometimes set in a box that they don't stop to think of the real world, and we're just thinking a hunt test where they kind of fake it, where we're not going to really do a lot of what they're testing for in the real world. A Navda is unlike that. That's why I got into it as often, because I find they're as close to the real actual hunting as any of the other hunt tests that I've worked my dogs with.
And I test a Navda as well. And one thing that I'm guilty of is not training certain things because I don't want my dog to learn them before testing at a certain level. So, for example,
Yeah,
on my my 6-year-old poodle pointer, who I'm not going to test, he gets all the handling, he gets all the casting and all the fun stuff. He gets, I mean, the HRC folks will look at me and tell me that's very basic, but for most people, it's pretty advanced retriever training. My 2.5-year-old female small Munsterlander, who will test in utility next year, isn't going to get any
right.
of that until after she tests in utility.
Correct. And the other negative I've found is I don't let them. I don't send them out and let them run wild and chase the birds. I I find that to be a no-no. But if you're hunting, if you're testing for Navda, they want to see that. They want to see
Right.
him run after. They want to see him go. I also find that if I change them over to a bird for the water, they won't retrieve a bumper. So
Yeah.
I can't work them on the birds in the water until they're finished with their 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 water test or their hunt test for natural ability.
Right.
They look at it and say, "Well, you threw it. Would you? Well, if you wanted it, why'd you throw it?" But there is a fine line as far as the natural ability, but I think a lot of the utility is right on. I do appreciate the fact that they do a lot of honoring. Some of the Spinoni will actually naturally honor, and if you're ever, which I already know, hunting with someone else and their dogs, and they're plowing in on your dog's point, or it's rude, and they don't teach it a lot of times for these tests where they should. Natural honoring or teaching them to honor is important. But I'm digressing. Sorry.
No, that's part of the important etiquette of upland hunting, right?
Yeah,
That's part of what separates, an upland hunter from other hunters is the expectation of the quality dog work.
it is. And I find myself hunting away from somebody that's got a dog that does that. And then they migrate over, and I think I don't want to be rude, so I might as well just keep the dog next to me so they don't get ruined. But
I got to
I
be
only
honest
have
with
a
you. I have
yeah,
no idea if any of my dogs will back or honor. We've never tested it. They've never had to. So it'll be
body.
interesting to learn.
You'd be surprised because a lot of times they just naturally honor. They don't even hit scent. They just see the other dog,
Right.
or at least these guys will, and they'll just slam into point. And it's impressive to see it. Another impressive thing for not just Spinoni, but a lot of the pointing and hunting dogs is when they're actually upwind and they just hit that little inch past it downwind and they turn into a U shape, and they're on point, and there's, as you can see, that there's not too much that I dislike about getting out and watching the dogs hunt, and watching the different they're different, each one of them with their uh, well, what's the word I want? Can you say it for me?
I'm not
Each
sure I've
one of the
got this one.
dogs have their, yeah, yeah. Each one of the dogs has their own
Just
you know
temperament and style and personality
style.
and
Thank you.
yeah.
Style. There we go. My mind is going because I hear this dog barking. Um it's a I think it's the shepherd, I can't tell. But as far, you probably wanted to know more about the dogs and the history and so on than you did about the hunting and the different styles. You could, I'll send you a couple of pages or a couple of articles that I've collected in the past on the Spinoni history.
Okay.
And you said you would probably fill it in. The problem that I've seen is each one of them is written by somebody who looks like has some little bit of opinion put into it instead of the facts. So you can kind of have to walk through and see what way you want to go with it. But all of them have agreed that in like 1450 they saw Spinoni in a portrait with one of the older paintings. I can't even say their names. And this was where they found they had originated from. And from that point forward, there's been dogs that have been taken from or put in to, like, especially in the World War II, when they were becoming extinct, they had to pull some dogs in because there weren't that many left on the Spinoni. I don't know if you've read that, but
It's
they,
actually really common with all of the European all the versatile breeds are European, but yeah, really common across
right,
all the breeds that that during World War II, whether it was
right,
just an economic thing in far Western Europe or in in Central and Eastern Europe where there was just so much war that their dogs were just being killed or they were being
yeah,
pressed into
terminate,
service for different purposes and things like that.
correct, yep. So, and they're like, very particular on what the dogs should be, and um, so again, they're have gone into some of the showing and lost some of it, but most of it has been brought back, and hopefully will continue with going forward on keeping them as to what they were bred to do. Uh,
Have you noticed a difference between the Spinonis that are kind of, several generations into American lines and the imports?
Um, not too well. Yeah, I have. Some of the Spinonis here in the U.S. have become a little clunky and heavy, and they're getting a little oversized. I do see a lot of the European older antique. I don't think I have it up, but the photos from this Spinoni in the 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever I happen to see there, they're not quite as large or as heavy as what American dogs have become, and some in England also. I do get the message from some of the breeders and Italian breeders that I correspond with and say, you're out in a duck boat and you got a 100-pound dog trying to get up and into your boat, and it's not that's not really what we were looking for. So we want to go in the right direction there also. You gotta kind of understand that when you're breeding, you're trying to get that balance, and you don't want to go too fine and you don't want to go heavy. Where we want the same stocky, square Spinoni that is made to go through it and um, get into the brush and swimming into the world of small is it's not going to be the way to go either, because that's just trying to get them sportier like they have with a lot of the Labradors. Or we can get them looking more like the Griffon, but we want to stay to that natural, um, good looking, strong, um, husky. I call it cobby, but at the same time, not too huge is what we're getting into.
Sturdy to type with the proper coat, and that way they're
Correct.
getting where you want them to go, right?
Right, right. Now I've watched some of the Broncos and they just like float, and they're out there and they're fast. Um, and they are tough also. They have a lot of that same head, same long ears, same scenting like the Spinoni, but their gaits are very different. This trot or the gallop for the Spinoni is quite a bit different, and their temperament is a little bit more higher energy, so they don't always come in and take a nap like the Spinoni can.
I've never noticed a similarity between Bracco and a Spinoni, and I see Spinonis fairly often. Yeah, I train about once a week at a friend's house, and she's a Spinoni
Oh,
breeder.
do
She's
you?
got, I think, 6 or 7 of them anyway. So I see
Oh,
them
yeah.
pretty
Which
often.
one?
But boy, I don't know the name of her kennel, and that's horrible. And she's probably going to listen to this, and then she'll probably not let me come to her place and train anymore.
You can edit it,
Yeah.
but yeah, I try to work with as many breeders as possible.
So I actually just looked her up. It's Penny Lane Spinonis.
Yeah, she's a
Here.
good one.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing, because if you said she wasn't, then I would definitely have to edit that out. Uh,
she,
yeah.
she does
No,
everything the right way.
yeah, Karen's a
Well,
good
she
friend
tries.
too. So what are some of your dogs, particularly the Spinonis that you've had, that have really stood out to you for whatever reason?
Oh gosh, I can't tell you that I dislike any, or well, my first one, of course, is always going to be the best, um, because of she was the first, and I had all the time in the world to spend with her. So if you talked about a finished hunting dog, That was one. If she was on point and the bird didn't move, I could probably set up a picnic lunch and she wouldn't move. Um,
That's pretty nice.
she always retrieved a hand and was all the commands they do it because they love you and they hunt with you and for you. That's part of the breed's charm, I think. Uh, so I studied a lot of the different, like say, for instance, the um, English pointer, and behind them, I think they bred in some foxhounds. They wanted them to work further out, faster, and be able to cover ground. And of course, a lot of people hunt with horses, and that works great for them. But the hound has a tendency to hunt for themselves. They're kind of on their own time. You see the difference with the Spinoni where they're checking in with you.
Hmm.
They will naturally quarter in front, and just if I walk anywhere to the right, to the left, back towards the house, my trained dog will will go whichever direction I happen to be going in or follow me. They check in on horseback. I've had them if I'm turning or walking in any direction, they still associate the horse and I and will follow direction that way.
Do you
They're
find that they
very,
expand their range after a few days of hunting on horseback?
if I allow that, a lot of them will, but I'm not always out in the open. I'm in the timber or in an area where they wouldn't really want to get out of my sight or I wouldn't want them to. I have a command close, and I've taught them a certain distance, which I know I can shoot. And you can do any distance, of course, that you would want to. And I just work them closer because I'm not up and as fast on the gun. And it's normally because I'm doing 10 different things besides shooting the birds, taking pictures, and I'm hitting the whistle and I'm training more than one dog. So I work them a lot closer. Number two reason is that the the wild birds seem to flush a lot faster. So if they're out too far, they're gonna be out and gone before I can even think about dropping them. So uh, I do have a gentleman again, the same one that I was talking about earlier. He doesn't live far from here, but Cade, he has a female that works according to who she's hunting with. So she hunts with her owner, Cade, and he is like 6'2", and he's walking slow, but he's covering, 3 times faster than someone like myself who's a lot smaller. And she works according to his speed and his direction. And if you flip her around to someone like myself, she'll pull it in more. So it's kind of nice seeing that they're in that frame of mind where they can be versatile and compromise to a different job. According to others, I may be a little too short to be keeping up with someone like that. Um, one of the other nice things about hunting with these guys, of course, the versatility is that we hunt the ducks. And it seems though when we change gear, the dog puts on a neoprene vest instead of just the chest red vest that you'd take them out for upland. They automatically, when they're more mature, they automatically know that this is not going to be the typical upland quartering. And when you first start it, ooh, they just don't understand. They have to just sit. But they do catch on quite well. Um, they also learn, of course, the goose hunting, and that's even more different than you're looking at for duck or upland. Some people hunt rabbit with them, and they know how to change their hats, if you want to say. Um, that is not always the same with some of the other breeds that I've hunted with. They're almost bred just for one specific task sometimes, and it's hard to harness their brain into changing, thinking outside of the box per se.
Well,
Um,
there are plenty of one-dimensional hunters out there that, they hunt locally
yeah.
and they've got their dogs and maybe they only hunt ruffed grouse or maybe they only hunt, pheasants and sharp-tails, which I think a dog could probably do both pretty easily.
Oh,
But
sure. Like
and it's certainly a little harder if you're a road warrior that's going to do maybe a week of rough grouse and then a week of pheasants and sharp tails and then maybe a week of quail and it's just different skills for the dog.
right. We do it actually. We'll do that in the same day sometimes. Switch over to the ducks from the ducks over to the upland, and that's if, of course, um, you have the dog that'll do it. But there's quite a few that, like, that first one I had was of course trained the best, but they all have it in them, and it's just a matter of how much time I have to put into them. Mostly train my boys because the girls are here and they either coming into season or I'm using them for maybe a litter of puppies. I will actually have litters for other breeders, not just Spinoni. I always am busy with dogs that are rehomes or rescues. Any of my dogs must come back to me if the people cannot keep them. So I've sometimes having to find them transportation back here and rehome them and evaluate them. So it's become a little bit hard on me for getting out like I used to. I do still find it important to train them up and get them into some NAs. So I'll even take some of my puppy buyers that live locally and train them for the tests.
Sure. Hunting season about to start, so what are you guys doing to get ready for the fall?
Right now I have my my best boy has passed on, my older boys, and I had a couple that I've trained up. They're not, of course, quite as good, but they will be by the time he's done the end of the season. Um, I have done my serious grooming training and exercise to well, I have two. I usually always take two, and they are raring to go already. But the difference is that, and it's probably like you're used to dealing, like you were saying, you were training with the other Spinoni owner. I train them a lot, except for the real hot time, and then I just switch over to the water training. But I train them all year, so they kind of got a little bit of the cobwebs out. We have pheasant. I guess it's a preserve, and they have a big long rows of corn and so on. They will let out the pheasants for us, and we'll go up and put them on that preserve and just tune them up a little bit more off the pigeons and typical typical training. Um, not too much that needs to be done except me getting myself into shape, ready to go.
That's always the long pole in the tent, right? My dogs are always fit. They, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
they get at least 2 to 3 training sessions per week.
right.
And then whatever yard work fitness we're doing around here, whether it's obedience in the yard or it might be just simple retrieves in the yard, but every dog's getting a good workout every day. I can pretty much guarantee that. And that's not so
Exactly.
much the case for me.
Exactly. I have see just the backyard's 150 by 150, and then they have a pool to swim in and a big uh, you guys may be pretty similar in Iowa, but I have where I'm at, I'm in a flat area, and then the mountains are on either side. But if they're just running on the flat ground, it does not do a whole lot for them when you're going to go up hiking and in their different muscles they're going to be using to get up and around on the hillsides. I have a big pile of dirt that I put out into the back so that they can run up and down on to help with that muscle. But you're right, it's me that needs to get it out.
I'm actually just the opposite. I actually live on top of a, I mean, maybe not a big hill by Western standards, but by Midwestern standards, it's a pretty darn big hill. And like I said, I live
Yeah,
on the top, and my property goes down. So anytime we want to go for a hike in the woods, we're going down, and then we gotta hump back up the hill. Where we
yeah,
train,
yeah.
our training grounds are all pretty flat, pretty standard training grounds. But then I think most of our hunting, unless I'm maybe quail hunting in Kansas, most of our hunting is pretty darn flat, at least what we've done so far. And, we've got to challenge ourselves to get some other places. But, you know,
Right.
Wisconsin, North Dakota, um, most of those places generally pretty flat
Yeah.
where we are. We actually did hit some pretty good, small mountains, big hills in Pennsylvania grouse hunting last year. But the dogs did fine with that. The dogs have no problem keeping up with me. I can tell you that much.
Well, you'll have to come here and I can take you out on some hills.
I'm gonna need a horse.
No, you don't want to. But yeah, that is. I've had quite a few people visit, and we go out. I enjoy the company because normally I'm out and crashing through by myself. Some people from Washington that come and out Boise that come through, and he's the gentleman Dirk is his name. He comes here and he's got everything lined up where he wants to hunt, and he's already got it on his phone where they have that. Um, which I actually downloaded. It's pretty good. The
Are you talking about the Onyx hunting app?
yeah, thank you.
Oh yeah.
So he brings his Onyx out, and everything is all lined up, and he's got it all ready to go. And I'm like, okay. But most of the people have to be pretty patient with me because they're always taller and faster, so we just kind of split. But he likes getting away from the typical areas. He likes to get into this area and do the sage grouse and the sharp tail, and then we hit the pheasant and in the ducks, and so he's a pretty good mate to take out also.
Don't threaten me with a good time on going hunting because I'm likely to take you up on
Okay.
it.
That's the place your dog you could stay.
The only problem is I cannot guarantee that my dogs are going to honor your dog's points.
That's all right.
We'll find out.
I'll just pull mine tighter and work someplace away from you.
Well, I think your, big, 70, 80 pound Spinoni will have no problem correcting my 40-pound small Munsterlander.
Oh, they won't. No, they're pretty well. They have manners. The hardest part, I think, with any two dogs getting out together is they start out thinking it's a competition. Then they settle in. So Most of the time, I don't have any trouble hunting with other breeds or dogs or people.
That's good. I've been laughing at my puppies when I'm going out to, to my friend's place to train, and I've got these two small Munsterlander puppies here that they have puppy manners, which are garbage manners, right? And she's got her
Yes.
big Spinonis out in the dog yard. She won't let them out when the puppies are there because I don't know that that would end well for the puppies right
The,
away with their poor manners.
these puppies are taught manners from all my males are just wonderful with my puppies, and they're also very patient. But some of my females can let them have. It sounds horrible, but it's sure it's really harmless. But they learn their manners right away from the adults, and if somebody else's puppy comes up, they're pretty tolerant.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Well, Rebecca, I've had you on for quite a while. I didn't give you a chance yet to talk about your kennel and about your business. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about that a little bit?
My business is out of my home. I have a 2.5 stall. It's a garage, 2.5 car garage, they call it, but I've made it into a office and then a kennel, and the it's attached to the house. They have quite a bit of area that they can get out and run and exercise. Every night they're brought in. They have like floor heat, and I have most of my life been sleeping, as you could see right there. I sleep here in the office with the puppies, or a lot of times if I have a house full, I'll be out here because I'm closer to hear if anything goes on. I do breeding, number one. I also do boarding. I do doggy daycare, and I do grooming. Uh, so everything is full time, and it's a way of life. It's not just a hobby. So it's a serious business that they're getting in trouble for right now. It's my life.
Well, there are worse ways to spend your day than with a bunch of dogs, right?
I know. I know. I, s- I had my grandson come over to help me. I'm overwhelmed and everything's a mess inside, but the dogs are well taken care of.
Rebecca, how can people contact you if they want to find out more information about Spinonis or about your kennel?
I have a website. I actually have two websites, mountainvalleyspinone.com, and then it's mvspinone.com. And then there are two places, or they could put in a application. Um, I also wish or want them to call and talk to me, and I have a kind of a strict contract that goes out. It is more for the benefit of the dog and for the breed, for trying to keep it down from having puppy mills go on and people that just think they're going to buy them and not have to conform to the rules. Um, I also make a big point, even if I tell them I don't care where you buy a dog or what kind of dog you buy, but I want to educate them on making sure they go with a responsible breeder, and finding the dogs that the parents have been tested. There's a long list that I send out to them, and I know they probably think I overdo it, but the people that are serious and they're going to want a dog that is quality, and a person that cares and knows exactly their needs, and will be there. I will tell them I've been doing it for 100 years and I'm still here. So if they need to ask me questions, you can't always get me on the phone and you can't always catch me, but at 1 or 2 in the morning, I'm on the computer or answering their questions. And if they need any kind of assistance, I will, until I pass away, I'll be taking care of them. They should have a breeder the same. Uh, they find somebody like that and they will not go wrong.
Yep, absolutely. You got to find, we always say pick the breed. That's kind of important. And then pick the breeder is extremely important.
Right, right. And find out if the dog is it from hunting stock, is it papered? Sometimes they'll tell you, well, we tested it with DNA, but Spinonis only have one DNA test at this time, and that's for a cerebral ataxia, which is not the same as a lot of the other breeds that you can do a lot of DNA testing on. So don't let them fool you on that. They should be able to show them any kind of paperwork or certificates, and it may not always be OFA certified with a number, but it's a prelim or a test that's been done. Or I do a lot of pen hips, so it doesn't show up on the AKC sites. Or yeah, when you're looking up the dog and they're trying to see what testing the dog's been through and they think it's not been tested, make sure that they double check because there are other testing qualifications.
Right.
They don't always have to have that championship or the NAVDA certificates, but the dog, sometimes could be the best dog for them and have wonderful pedigree and great lines, and they have good, strong hunting instinct. So find out a little bit more. If you can't find out through the paperwork, you can find out, right there from the breeder. They can show you, and I do invite them over to show them some examples.
Yep, absolutely. And it's always better to have a healthy dog that hunts okay than an unhealthy dog that hunts great.
Well, you can always, oh yeah, that's one of my sayings too, but you can always get them to hunt great. Just put a little time into it.
Yeah.
My saying for some of the people that have come and they're not familiar with the Spinoni, they're more familiar with some of the other breeds, and when they look at the dog and they see my puppies will haul around and chase a bird and go after a wing, but they're impatient because I'm saying, what you see is what you get with some of them, but the Spinoni is like the fine Italian wine that you get it, and then through time it becomes more and more valuable. And each year I look at it and go, wow, I didn't think it'd get any better, and it's even better than the year before. They just are slow to mature. That's unlike some of the smaller breeds who mature a little bit faster, and sometimes the males can be a little slower learning.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
No offense.
All right. On that note, Rebecca, I'm not going to let you insult me anymore.
Okay.
But I do want to thank you so much for
Oh, you're
spending some
welcome.
time and for coming on this show.
Right. And you're welcome anytime. Just pop in.
I hope you enjoyed episode number 33 of the Wopost podcast. If you did, leave a 5-star review, and follow or subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you use. Remember to like and follow at The Woe Post on Facebook and Instagram. Join our growing community on Patreon, and shoot me an email at bill@thewopost.com. Stay steady and God bless.